All right, so previously we got things all set up with our project schedule. We identified some of the different columns that we have, how we can insert, add rows as we need to, as well as adjust and work with what we have for any of the dates, leveraging some of the predecessor relationships that we already have pre-configured for us. Let's jump back into the project plan and talk about how you can make some adjustments on the fly when you need to for any of those items as you're working through the different tasks during the project work efforts to see where you would need to go for any adjustments that you would need to make along the way. So I'm going to navigate back to what we have for our project schedule. We'll go ahead and close the sidebar view on the left-hand side. And this time I want to enter into what we have for the Gantt view of the project. So going to the View option, selecting Gantt View, and now it's added for me this sidebar pane on the far right-hand side that's going to give me the colored bars that represent what we have for the Gantt view. In this hypothetical, let's change this so that instead of having this project start today at the very earliest task, we can see today is represented by a vertical dotted line on the right-hand side for the Gantt. I'm going to bump this back and say that we're now 4 weeks into this project. So if I do T for today minus 4W, 4 weeks into the past, I can see that that's now adjusted what we have for our Gantt view. I'm going to make this a little bit wider so we can see exactly what we're working with. So now we can see we basically fast forwarded into the future. Our today marker is now representing us in the early stages of what we have for the execution phase of the project, specifically within the build window for the application build that you may recall we expanded to be able to accommodate what we have for this build effort. Additionally, now that we've made some adjustments for the dates, we can see that our health column is now populating some of the different dots that we didn't see before. And this is because the health of the project, both at the project level as well as down to the individual task level and everything in between, this is dictated by what we've designated as far as how far along we are for any of those tasks, phases, or the overall project, as represented by % complete. So if we were to add some details here to say, well, we know that we've already identified sponsors, we've already done a project kickoff, we can mark those as 100% complete. And as we do so, we see that we have changed the red dots that we had, representing something that's overdue. They're now registered as a gray dot, representing something that we have now completed. We can effectively mark that as done, put it in the back of our mind, not something that we need to worry about unless something new pops up. So this is something that's important to note as we do this checkoff for what we have at individual tasks. The health is represented for that task. Similarly, once we get to the completion of an individual phase, that phase is going to inherit whatever we have down below it for the tasks that compose that body of work. Similarly, once we look at the phase level, all of that rolls up to the overall project so that we really just maintain what we need to maintain at the task level. The plan is going to take care of the rest for us. So let's complete those entries for a few more line items until we get down to the application build task for what we have on row 10, and that'll tell us more about what we can do with that from there. We'll mark discovery as 100% complete. We've also defined our scope, and finalization of the project documentation is done too. Now that we're into the execution phase, we can see this is currently represented as a yellow dot, suggesting that this is in the window in which we're supposed to be working on this effort, but we're behind schedule for where we should be. That's suggestive of the fact that we don't have any entry yet. So if we were going to mark this as, we'll just say 5% complete, we can see that we're still registering as a yellow dot. But you'll notice for the overall execution phase, we're now actually on track for the overall execution phase of the project. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a second. So understanding that we are still behind, you'll also notice for the Gantt chart, this is where the Gantt chart actually becomes really useful, we can see that we're starting to fill up these different bars based on what we're putting for the % complete. So any of these light green bars for what we have up above that we've already marked as 100% done, that's a full light green bar covering what it has for the underlying bar for the task. For this 5% complete effort for the application build, see we just have a smidge of this light green bar. As that bumps up, we'll start to see that bar bump up as well. And as we surpass where we should be, again based on the vertical dotted line for the timing of what we have for today's date, that's lining up. It's actually, we've surpassed that with where we should be for the % complete. This is now registering as a green dot, suggesting that we are at or above where we should be for this particular task. Again, a very powerful way that we can visually inspect where we are versus where we should be, both on the Gantt chart on the right-hand side, as well as what we have for the colored dots indicating the health for the task, the phase, and the overall project.